Briefly about logos. Ideally, you want to have them black and white because the shape should be working in any kind of material, so you might not have the color that you want. But color, of course, plays a big role on the personality of the logo. Like right away, you get a certain feeling from different colors. And below, you can see we talked about what traditionally colors stand for. They keep changing every year. It's a new color. But these brands, they go for many, many years, the year plan. So you want to have that color, and usually you can already tell by this specific color that you're on Facebook, that you're on Pinterest, that Twitter. They all sort of have their own kind of brand color in itself. And then, of course, type plays a big personality of your logo that you want to. So you might want to look into the history of type, of what kind of associations you can get with that message. What I think is really important about logos is the negative space, because you are limited in the colors. So you only have, usually, you want to stay with one color as a general idea. But then you can use the negative space as your second color, so that automatically gives you a second color. And it's also kind of clever, and it's cool, and it stays in the shape. And these are, I think, some good examples. You see the W in the pure water, you see the electricity in the plugs, you see the egg in the eggs, you see Brooklyn Bunny, the ears of the Brooklyn Bridge. All of these, I think, are very cool negative shapes in the logos. A spoon this is a food writing block, but I think this negative is very bold of this city, the shadows of the big buildings. I think it's very good for New York as a logo back then. So just looking back a little bit on the history of these marks, or I don't know if they would have called them logos, but crests, or kind of symbols that the manufacturers, even in Greek, of certain artifacts would put on their products. So they had a certain signature that they would sign their work with. Later on, then the kings would have a sign for their armies to identify who they were, of course, on the flags. That's kind of a logo. And then with the rise of trade, they would have their own logos and crests to simplify that you're a baker, a hat maker, and all these kind of things. Then the printers would use these they were considered alchemists because they used metals, and they used these symbols to stamp the printed books that they published with it. So these were all the old ones. And also when they donated, for example, here at the church in Freiburg, where my hometown, they had these glass windows, and they were sponsored by people, but they wanted to put their sort of logo on the window to tell people that they sponsored this window. It was advertising, and also at the same time it was like a good deed for the church. So here was the bakery. Moving on, for the Art Nouveau, there were a lot of monograms that the artists used. On the lithography was a new printing form, and some of the early brands. This really starts again from like Industrial Revolution on later on. This is 19th century, where people needed to have a logo to signify their brand, to sell it, to make sure that people knew where this was from. And then big industry was in Germany and in Europe back then. These are some of the iconic logos for the VW. One of the earlier ones, Volkswagen. Adidas later on, of course. Siemens is a big industry machine. I think Lego is not German. That's some Nordic company. I forgot where. And then later on in America, another big industry like IBM and Kodak was Japanese, Aqua. With TV, I think we have more colors, like getting a little bit more versatile. Like MTV had this logo thing where they always keep changing the heads that they called on the website to, or on their ads they would keep have artists build new things with their logo, which was kind of cool. And then the swoosh thing in the 90s, very popular. Some really famous designers were Paul Rand. He did the IBM logo. He also did UPS and ABC, like some of the logos that are still around for a long, long time. Oh, here is Ivan Chermayeff, and he designed logos like Showtime, NYU, Chase, things that are still around as well, gas stations. Paula Scher is working at Pentagram now, but she she designed a new school and the public theater. That I think that's what made her really famous. Her work is very typography heavy. When you look at that, very cool stuff. Also a very iconic New York designer is Milton Glaser. He designed this "I Love New York" logo that he famously never really got money for, but it made him very famous. And if you watch interviews with him, he seems to be a really, really nice guy. I kind of missed meeting him when he was a teacher at SVA. I had a chance to talk to him. I didn't really like his style at the time, because he was such an illustrator and sort of like an older generation for me. But the more I look into his work, I really start to like his colors and his humor. So look at some of his interviews, very, very cool. There's also this anecdote about the Nike swoosh logo that she designed as a student for $35 for them. They didn't really like it at first, but they said it would grow on them. Of course, it became one of those really iconic logos that everyone knows. So you never know. Over the time, they didn't really change that much. It kind of stayed the same thing, but it was just a very strong shape at the time, and it sparked like a whole generation of swoosh logos after that. Someone you might not expect to be a logo designer, Salvador Dali, but he was friends with the owner of Chupa Chups, and even Dali needed to have a job every once in a while. When he was he designed this logo for him. Japanese cities, they have these very cool, iconic, very simple shape logos, like the one with the triangle here symbolizing the three. It's Setagaya is a town near Shibuya, and Hatagaya, and what's the Shinjuku. I think those three come together at this triangle, so that's why they chose this star. And there's also the Tokyo logo is a ginkgo tree leaf, as you can see, a very simple shape as well. These days, you want to go into different niche or otaku style kind of logos. If you look around for all these graffiti or like sort of street art looking logos for clothing companies, for example. I made this one for a techno. So these days, I think you should also be thinking about how you can animate the logo. Okay, make your own.